Welcome, everybody. Thank you for sharing with us. Well, I'm going to share with you a little bit of some elements of my journey as a consultant, mainly in Central America. Well, in area terms, Costa Rica is a fifth of Oregon state, and we have more than 6 times your population. And well, it is interesting that Costa Rica is friend of Oregon since 1965 through Partners of the America, which is a program established by J.F. Kennedy. Our country is a republic and is the most stable democracy in Latin America with more than 130 years. And we abolished our army in 1948 and decided to invest rather in education and health. And we developed a green economy during the last 30 years, and that is the basis for a successful ecotourism industry that contributes more 6.3% to the GDP, while the wood industry contributes only 0.2%. Okay, Costa Rica is in the center of the continent, and has been a biological part of the biological bridge between North and South America, and that had allowed us to have a lot of biodiversity that is an important attraction for people who love it. And well, but not all was positive. We had a dark past. We were deforesting our country, especially after we passed a homestead law in 1960. Taking advantage of money from Burger King and McDonald's, the people were told to go and cut down the forest and plant forage. And once they had done that, they would have a right over the title of the land, and they could get credit from the bank with that money. And that accelerated the deforestation process. In 1969, we issued our first forestry law. And in early 70s, we started creating our national parks in a very aggressive way, taking over 25% of the land, even without money to pay expropriations that were paid later with the help of tourism. And we created our forestry schools in 75 and 76. And once we had the first generation of foresters, we started the reforestation incentive program. That called my attention, and I wanted to be part of it. The reason why I started becoming a forester since 1980. And during those school years, took off the ecotourism industry. After finishing school and being involved in reforestation and learning about evaluated reforestation projects in early stages, I saw that I realized that I needed to learn more, and I came. And I a blackout in Oregon. And then I came to study at the University of Idaho, and there is where I got in love with numbers as studying economics. But a few years after I went back to Costa Rica, the reforestation incentives program changed to a payment for environmental services that Anna talked about before. And well, that has had a very important concentration of resources towards the recovery of secondary forests rather than reforestation. Reason why the wood industry hasn't really stagnated. However, in 3 decades, we were able to double our forest area, and that's an important opportunity. But because of my interest in reforestation, I put my eyes on Central America that had really continued in deforestation. Those are intact forests. The other ones are degraded forests. That means that they have a lot of intervention and some deforested areas. Although we don't have the maps to compare, well, this is the other one is the ideal situation, which means is the way it was, of course. It's 100%. At that time, I created my firm, OptiForest, and from that, I started growing as an analyst. And well, I decided I needed to have a refreshment, I needed to have a comparison, and I needed to come to the great leagues here. And I had the opportunity to get involved in an interesting opportunity. So let me talk to you a little bit about forestry plantations. And here we see a timeline, and here 20 years is more or less an average for a rotation of a plantation of already valuable wood like teak, which grow really faster than here. Here you talk about minimum of 40, 60, 80-year rotations, and but we are in the tropics. We have a lot of more energy. And well, that species is good. But when we do investments, we put a lot of money at the beginning to start with nurseries, to prepare the land, and to establish the plantation. Once established, we need to go maintaining it until we need to open space to allow the trees to keep growing in diameter, mainly in the right pace. And then we have thinnings. The first one is not commercial normally. You don't sell anything, but you continue maintaining it, and then you start having thinnings that start adding income or revenues. But the revenues concentrate at the end of the period, of the investment period. And that means that, well, that these kind of investments are very sensitive to discount rates. The money discounted from the future is not gonna be the same as discounted from shorter term periods. So the costs, which are at the beginning, are gonna be less discounted than the income than the revenues. And for that reason, we need to pay attention to growth, and we need to be as precise as possible. And for that, we measure periodically diameters, heights, and we can measure quality. We can develop taper relations, and taper is the relation of diameter change along the stem of the tree, which is not like a perfect cone. And then also we need to know of that growth how much is going to become real products that we can market, because of diameter, length of the logs, and sap and hardwood ratio, the quality of the log, and the market requirements. Okay. Here, and the normal approach to do this kind of projections, normally from measurement, is that we work on, or the people work on plot averages basis, or 75 percentile. Some people do as a preference. In my case, I do it on a tree by tree to be able to get to a log by log projections. And it's not the same to put a price on a tree from the diameter at this height, at breast height, than to put it on the diameter of the logs. Okay, so I developed my time machine that well, allows me to go to that detail, and even to make projections for different sections of the plantations, depending on the genetic quality. Some are clones, some are from seeds. Some seeds are good, some seeds are bad. Some are in agroforestry systems with different spacing and with extra fertilizing, etc. Okay, and then well, this is the way I see things. I like really to go deeper, and well, and here I came to learn about the best practices along the supply chains in the Pacific Northwest, as well as to evaluate my time machine, and okay, and see where it needed to be improved. Well, during about the first objective, I learned about nurseries. I learned about equipment that can be developed here or is developed here, and I had only seen in magazines from Europe, from Finland, etc. When I was younger. And now that I'm involved with reforesters, I would like really to get them in contact with people doing this kind of technology around here. And also about the best practices on extension that I liked a lot, the way OSU is doing it, how putting together all the parts to learn and negotiate directly, like loggers with landowners, with forest owners, and consultants. And also about management, different approaches with small woodland owners, corporations, native people. This is from Idaho, and also the Umatilla, that is a very interesting approach. And of course, about the education programs like OFRI, World Forestry Center, and OSU too. And well, basic things like pruning in the the urban trees or urban forests is such a basic thing that in Costa Rica is not well done yet. And also about scaling technology for extraction, and also firefighting, the importance of outdoors, which is I think in the heart of Oregon's ecoculture, as well as ecological restoration and conservation. All those practices are important to me. The second objective of evaluating my tool was possible through an internship with Greenwood Resources. Reason why I thank Steve and Sharia for making it possible, and Ricardo Paves for being my mentor in the technical aspects of my project. And there I was able to I am working, and I think this part of validating this tool is ready, although we're gonna work in another one later. So my finding is that this tool produces highly detailed product merchandising projections, a lot superior than the normal approaches on a log-by-log basis. And that produces more realistic evaluation, putting prices on logs and not on the tree. And but it needs some tweaks, mainly to make it more time efficient in processing, and in some modules of it. At the same time, it will be positive to add to it some new outputs to make easier for later work. What am I taking home? A list of improvements to work on my growth and yield tool on the time machine, a close understanding of the kind of work Greenwood Resources does and may need help with in the future, and a strong professional network to connect with Central American reforestation actors and develop a faculty-led study trips to Central America. And a very enriching experience of living within a society with a better balanced ecoculture between forestry and conservation. I thank you for allowing me to share with you as a society. I'm really impressed, and really wish my kids will have that experience too. So thank you for your support.